Hey everybody, welcome back to Class Visits. I am so sorry that I had to move to an asynchronous model. I really was not expecting that massive internet outage at my school. So I apologize that I had to kind of finish or pick up where we left off in an asynchronous setting versus being able to collaborate with you live. I'll leave some collaborative links in the message that I'm sending you, though. If you want to continue to collaborate or have a conversation, there will be ways that you can do that. And there's also still ways digitally in this presentation that we can keep connecting about these ideas. So again, I'm so sorry that I had to move to an asynchronous format. My hotspot, everything was not working and not connecting due to our massive power outage. So I'm so sorry that that happened. I was not anticipating to be in that position at my school, but you know, we're educators. We pivot on a dime. So here is me picking up where we left off. And so we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. So I'm going to briefly touch and highlight the things that we kind of already went over in case someone is watching this video for the first time. But I'm definitely going to pick back up at our notice and wonder, and I'm going to kind of highlight and speak to some of the things that you guys were commenting on before we got cut off. And then I'll finish going through the resources in this presentation just to give you some context about where we were going next and how you can use these class visits for your teachers in your school. So kind of to touch very quickly on the highlights that we already went over, this class visit idea does pair with the ISTE standards very well. So for coaches, it's under the collaborator and change agent standard. So you'll be able to personalize support for educators by planning and modeling the effective use of technology to improve student learning. That's actually the whole point of these class visits. And then you're also able to establish a trusting and respectful coaching relationship that encourages educators to explore new instructional strategies. So by teachers being able to see what other teachers are doing and how they're finding success in their classrooms, you're really able to encourage and foster some of that creativity to encourage other teachers to try new things. And then for change agent, you can create a shared vision and culture for using technology to learn and accelerate transformation. And then in green, if you do this with your teachers, in green are some of the teacher ISTE standards. And this is really how you can help your teacher meet some of those standards. All right, so our outcomes. The essential questions that we have for this whole idea is how can I differentiate PD? How can I empower teacher leaders? So how can I use some of the great teachers that I have in my building, really put them in a leadership opportunity and share out what they're doing? How can I help grow support teachers? And how can I provide personalized feedback or coaching? Class visits should hopefully answer all of those essential questions and be something that you can use with your teachers too. Some success criteria is that you'll understand the different parts of the HyperDoc PD, and that's actually where we were going next when we got cut off, is what are the 6 parts of that HyperDoc PD format for a class visit. You'll be able to utilize class visits to differentiate or provide choice in your PD, and then you'll gain ways to provide personalized feedback or coaching experiences. So I'm not going to touch too much on the who, what, when, where, why, because we already went over this, but it is slide 8 in the presentation. Basically, class visits takes your traditional learning walk where you're taking teachers to other teachers' classroom and turning that into a digital format. And the purpose of putting it in a digital format is so that I can be very targeted with what I want teachers to see. So by me doing it in a digital format, instead of taking like 40 to 45 minutes to see something happen in a classroom, or taking a teacher to another teacher's classroom and us spending some time in there, but not really catching what I wanted the other teachers to see out of this particular teacher's teaching, I can be very targeted in putting a string of videos together from somebody's classroom so that the teachers are able to see what's going on in just a couple minutes. So it saves their time and still provides them the information that they need to see what's going on in others' classrooms. All right, so if you haven't already, we did do this during the live session. You got to click around and explore a class visit. So our virtual class visits are on the left. So if you choose to explore this class visit, you're going to see teachers teaching virtually. This idea still works amazing with face-to-face instruction. So on the right, you'll actually see how we're back face-to-face now. You can see how we utilize these class visits with face-to-face instruction. And so if you want to just take a minute to explore what a class visit is, if you haven't already, you just click on the particular image that you want to explore. And you can click on any class visit. This is actually what teachers do too, to pick a particular class visit that they're interested in. So say I wanted to go explore the Amazon product. I could click on the Amazon product class visit. It's going to take me to that particular hyperdoc specifically for the Amazon product page. And you can see now that I can explore what essential questions will this class visit answer. You can see how I engage with what's going on in the classroom. So basically I click there and watch a short clip of students actually working on this assignment or this lesson. I can explore the resources used in the lesson, and then there's a whole bunch of opportunities to collaborate and share with colleagues. So that's kind of the basics of the HyperDoc PD format. So now we're picking back up where we left off. So right where we left off is about slide 10, when we were starting to put what we were seeing on the class visits into our Notice and Wonder document. So I encourage you, if you didn't get your ideas out before we got cut off, I encourage you to still post on this document. I'm actually going to respond to all of these comments right on the document right after this recording. So you can either watch this recording or see what I have to say digitally as well. And if more of you post, I'll continue to be able to respond here in a digital format. So in the notice column, some of you, especially the first two comments, were talking about how there's a clear understanding in the class visits of what teachers are going to get out of the class visits. That actually is the purpose of the essential questions. The essential questions are there so that the teachers can quickly see, is this class visit going to meet their needs or not? If they read their essential questions and they're like, this is not really what I'm looking for, then they can just close out of that class visit and pick a new one. That's the whole purpose of there being choice and them getting to see these different options. So going into the next notice statement is, I notice that students are engaged in the game strategies and they are easy to implement. Yes, I purposely try to target or find strategies that are really just good teaching or good for any content area. I also sometimes get this question when I'm doing this presentation of how do you pick teachers to show in the videos. I intentionally try to pick different content areas as well, so that if a science teacher wants to see another science teacher teaching or what strategy they're using or finding successful in science, they can kind of target their choices that way as well. And then in terms of the students being engaged, you're seeing that on purpose. So oftentimes, another question that I sometimes get in the Wonder column, which I haven't even read it yet, so maybe it's there, is how teachers feel about me taping their classrooms. Honestly, we're 4 years in now, and I have created the culture that this is a normal thing and it's a great way to show leadership. So now I'm at the point where teachers are actually emailing me and saying, hey, I have a great lesson that I think is going to go well today. If you want to come in and get a quick video, you can. So I really don't have to go looking for videos anymore. But when I started this process, I would go into the classroom. I would just take out my phone and start recording if I started seeing some good things going on. And 10 times out of 10, if I told a teacher that there was some really good instruction going on in their room, they were okay with me using the video. But going into student engagement, part of the reason why they were okay with me using the video is I'm really focused on what the students are doing. So a lot of times you won't even see the teacher in these videos that I'm making. I'm always trying to talk talk to the students, see what the students are doing. And that's what I'm really showing in my quick 3 to 5 minute videos. The visit is short, just targeted around the highlighted activity. Yep, I just spoke to that. So the videos are short intentionally. Our adults are just like our students sometimes, and we don't want to watch a long video. Most of them are no longer than 5 minutes. The only extenuating circumstances that you might see is if a teacher is actually presenting on like a Loom or something and trying to show another teacher how a system or a digital resource works on the back end. You might see those videos be a little longer because some of those teachers are giving some extra context. Resources are shared, not just the exemplar clip. That is the purpose of the Explore section. I really want this to be super easy for other teachers to implement in their classroom. So anything that a teacher is using, whether it's a worksheet, a digital resource, a digital tool, a game, I don't know, anything that the teacher is using in that lesson, even if it's just a link to a strategy that the teacher is using, I put it all in that Explore section so that it's very easy for a teacher to find the template that they need to use to make it work in their classroom or see what the strategy is. And love how you are celebrating the best resource in the building, the teachers down the hall. Yes, so every teacher in North Carolina is trying to meet that leadership standard in their nieces, right? This is a good way for our teachers to do that. So when they are being used as a teacher leader in these class visits, it's a great artifact that they can bring to their summative or try to use to boost their nieces. All right, so let's speak to some of the wonders. Does this lose flavor as the year goes by? I'm constantly adding new ones. So I always like to start my year off with at least 6 or 7 choices. But as the year goes on, I always try to add at least 3 more choices every time we release these. So by the end of the year, I've got a bank of like 20 of them at least, probably. But there's always constantly new things for the teachers to find or new teachers to visit. So I would say no, because I'm continuing to provide choice and new things for them to explore. Do you have teachers who are reluctant to share strategies beyond video? I feel like I spoke to that. Being student-centered is a great way to work around that. But if I had recorded and then went and talked to a teacher after and they said, no, I don't want you to use that, I wouldn't have used that. I always share the HyperDoc PD format once I'm done creating one with the teacher leader in the video. I have them look over everything, including the video, and if they tell me it's good to go, then I release it to the whole staff. I wonder if the digital format lessens the common complaint about not enough time in the classroom or for feedback. So hopefully I will show you a little bit later on in this presentation how I use it to help have a coaching conversation with each of them. But we use a protocol so that it really still protects the teacher leader if teachers are commenting on what's going on in the classroom. So hopefully I'll be able to answer that wonder later on. I wonder if these classroom visits include pre-visit meetings and or post-visit meetings to provide feedback. For the teachers who are actually visiting the classroom, I do have a digital way that I make sure that I'm trying to have a two-way conversation with them after they visited a class visit, if that makes sense. So hopefully you'll see that later on too. I wonder how receptive teachers are to the classroom visit format. Most of them appreciate the asynchronous format. They appreciate a break in the face-to-face PD where they can really choose something that is interesting to them. So they like that there's choice. They like that it's in an asynchronous format. Honestly, some of them do. I normally, when we do this, require them to do one. I have many teachers who submit more than one just because they're interested in multiple topics. So I think in general, our teachers are pretty receptive and used to this as being part of our normal PD requirements. Do you have to make sure about permission to video and share? Aside from this presentation, it's really only our teachers watching our kiddos. So for that reason, a lot of like the media things that students may sign. It's not like these videos are being shared on social media or to the public. It's really just purely for teacher use. And again, if a teacher had told me that they didn't want me to use the video, I wouldn't. So in terms of the teacher being okay with it, they're definitely okay with it. In terms of students being in the video, because it's really in a controlled environment, it's not too much of a worry there. And then, do you still have classroom visits in person? These all look digital, but we want to start class visits in person again. Yes, I think I spoke to this one as well. Definitely check out the class visits that are on the right-hand side. And I actually even have another example later on in this presentation. These are all when we're in person. Are these observations for the teachers shown in video and giving them constructive feedback, or is it more to observe an experienced teacher to show beginning teachers an example of specific lessons or strategies? Definitely the latter. The purpose of these is to observe a teacher who's finding success with either a digital tool or an instructional strategy in their classroom, and really show not just beginning teachers, but any teachers how this is working and how they can use something like this in their own classroom. I will say for beginning teachers specifically, sometimes we do explore these as a whole, like beginning teacher cohort in our beginning teacher meetings. I wonder if there is a data collection tool used in this format for visiting teachers that can be shared with the visited teacher. There is a collaborative space to see what everybody is saying about the class visits. So they would be able to look and see that information there. Beyond that, there's not something specific, but that could definitely be next steps for an idea like this. All right, so thank you guys for those great notice and wonders. I definitely wanted to take time to kind of debrief some of those since that's where we got cut off. But to kind of wrap up and finish our presentation, I'm going to go through all 6 sections of the HyperDoc PD format. I'll show you step by step where I interact with teachers and kind of what that interaction looks like. And then by the end of this, you'll be able to get the template that I use so that if you want to create class visits with your teachers, you don't have to start from scratch. Feel free to take my resources in my template. All right, so starting with the first 2 sections of the HyperDoc PD format. I kind of already spoke to the essential questions, but no doubt I always start by writing essential questions for the particular strategy or lesson that teachers are going to watch so that they know exactly what they're going to get out of this particular lesson, strategy, digital resource, etc. That way they can quickly see, do I want to watch this class visit or do I want to pick another one? The watch section is where they actually see it in action, and this is very powerful because they're seeing their colleagues use it in their classroom, and they're seeing with real high school students whether these strategies are successful and how the students are doing with them. So the video piece of this is super powerful, and as you can see, we already spoke to this too. The videos are quick. They're like 3 to 5 minutes. I edit all of mine in iMovie because I have a Mac, but I just kind of chop up the quick important sections of the lesson that would really help somebody understand what's going on, and I leave it as short as I can. Going into the Explore section, we kind of spoke on this section a little bit too. This is where I link everything that's going on in the lesson. So if there was a worksheet used, if there was an instructional strategy used, the strategy would be linked there. Any digital resources, they're all in this Explore section. If there was a template used, so that a teacher who's going to try this in their classroom is ready to go and doesn't have to go Googling all over the place for the things that they need to get started with this in their own classroom. Okay, so the reflection section, section 4, is where they do their own individual reflection. So I use the Connect, Extend, Challenge protocol for them to do their own individual reflections. If you click here, you can make a copy of that Google slide and steal it for yourself if you like the Connect, Extend, Challenge protocol. But this is an individual reflection at this point. So the connect part of the protocol is how I get teachers to try to connect to something that they already know or do in their classroom. So they're trying to connect what they just watched or experienced to something that they already know. It's kind of like building some background knowledge there. Extend is how did watching this lesson or going through this class visit extend your thinking? What's something new that you learned? What's something that you want to try? What's something that you're excited about? That all goes in the extend section. We all know there are always challenges, and that challenge section often prevents teachers from trying new things. I have that challenge section as part of their reflection because I want to know what they're anticipating to be difficult about this particular idea so that I can have a two-way conversation with them about how we can overcome that and combat those things. So the challenge sections is what challenges or puzzles have come up in your mind from the ideas and information presented. All right, so as I mentioned, they put that Connect Extend challenge in a Google slide. They have to share that Google slide back for me. So they have to share that individual reflection back with me to even get credit for the PD. And I kind of just keep all of them organized on a Google Sheet. So you can see for teacher one, every class visit that they do, I link right here so I can see how many they've done, and I just kind of have a paper trail of all the reflections that I got from them. The other thing that I do to stay organized is I don't link it in the sheet or mark it as complete until I have responded digitally to every single one that is submitted to me. I know that may seem time consuming, especially because I mentioned I have 120 teachers at my school. They don't all come to me at the same time because they have like a week or two to complete these. So it's a little bit easier to keep up with than you would anticipate, especially if you're commenting as they get sent to you. But I like them to feel like what they're submitting to me is being looked at and being heard. And honestly, this digital space on a Google slide is a great place for us to start and have a coaching conversation. I always try to make a comment. You can see in this screenshotted comment that the teacher is talking about a challenge they may face, and I'm able to comment directly back to the teacher and try to start that two-way conversation. And honestly, this really opens the door for a coaching cycle, because if it's something that they're really reflecting on and interested in, then I can come help do a coaching cycle to really get this strategy or digital tool or resource, whatever's in the lesson, to fidelity in their classroom as well. So it's a great way to start a coaching cycle. All right, the last two steps are both reflection steps. So step 5 is where they share out with everybody. So I use an AEIOU strategy for teachers to share out with other teachers what they just experienced. So step 4 is kind of like their own individual reflections and goal setting. Step 5 is how they can see how every teacher is experiencing, what class visit they went to and what they got out of it. And again, I use that AEIOU strategy to do that. This is where the veteran teachers who are in that video can see what other teachers are seeing in that collaborative space. And then the last section is meant for goal setting. And again, I'm opening that door to a coaching cycle. I have my booking page linked directly in this section. I call it Reflecting with a Purpose. And if there is things they want to implement and try, I have that space right there for them to come to me and us to talk about how to implement this in their classroom, aside from the digital space. So slide 15 is where I show you what one of the AEIOU Padlets look like. So if you click on it, you can see what some other teachers are experiencing from some of the class visits that they have already had. So they're only required to post in one of these columns, but they could post more if they wanted to. I use the AEIOU strategy because there's a lot of good things that come up when you write about something exciting or something interesting or a revelation that you had. But I also like the U part of the AEIOU strategy, because if there are any questions, The teacher leaders especially can look in this question section and try to comment directly if they have a question for that teacher leader. All right, so if we were still virtual and we were still live in this presentation, I would stop and have you guys connect, extend, and challenge to this idea of class visits. So if you're wanting to see what some other people say, as I mentioned, I've done this presentation so many times. I've done it at NC Ties, ISTE, South Carolina Ed Tech. It's been all over the place. So you can see what some other people are saying about this idea too. The first part of the Jamboard is for how you connect. So how do you connect with this idea of class visits? The second slide is how do you extend? How did this idea of class visits extend your thinking? And then the last slide is for challenge. What are you still wondering about? What do you feel like might still be challenging or might be getting in the way of doing something like this with your teachers? All right, so that's a great digital space that we continue this conversation, even though we had to move into an asynchronous setting. Slide 18 is where you get to take my template. So if you don't pay attention to any other slide, make sure you go to slide 18 if you're wanting to try this with your teachers. It's a section that you can just take my Google Doc, make a copy of it, and use it to fit your own needs for your own class visits. So in closing, kind of some of my reflections, I've actually been a little bit more targeted with my classroom visits even recently. So last year we had a school improvement goal of using the SEL playbook to kind of implement some SEL content-based strategies into the classroom. So I used our classroom visits to highlight the teachers who are actually using those SEL content-based strategies and trying to show teachers how the students are doing with those type of activities and encouraging them to try what we're learning in our face-to-face PD on their own and kind of getting that curiosity and willingness to try new things going. So I really liked the intentional focus with our school goals and what our classroom visits were. This is definitely a change that I would keep. I've tried a Google form for the individual reflection instead of a Google slide. To be honest with you, I liked the Google form because it kept my responses in a spreadsheet a little cleaner. But what I don't like about a Google form versus the Google slide that I showed you is the Google form doesn't allow me to have a two-way conversation. And on the Google slide, I really found it valuable that I could try to start a conversation in a digital format on their Google slide reflection. So I would honestly probably keep the Google slide for that reason. And then you can actually click on this image. It's clickable. I've used the tag protocol in addition to the AEIOU protocol to get them to share out. And you can see in this particular Padlet that myself and the other instructional coach are actually commenting right on this Padlet as well, especially since we really couldn't comment back on the Google form. After a class visit is over, we redirect them to the Padlet and tell them to go look at the comments. But the teacher leaders can still comment on these as well. So the tag protocol is just a different protocol to AEIOU. And I would say it's definitely still just as successful and does what it needs to do, just like AEIOU. All right, so the last thing that I'm going to close with is I have this make and take. As I've mentioned before, I've done this presentation a couple of other times before. The whole idea of class visits can be overwhelming because it's a big, huge, full-blown idea, right? The purpose of this make and take is really to break down the sections of the hyperdoc. And even if you feel like you are not ready to implement a class visit in your classroom, you can still take one of these sections and think about how am I using this particular section to transform what I'm doing with teachers. So for example, the first one is essential questions. If you have a good idea about how you could use essential questions with your teachers, post it on one of these slides that comes after it. Post it on slide 4, 5, 6, or 7 about what idea you have to really target or use essential questions with teachers. I'm going to show you one that's already there. The Explore section is meant to be a resource hub of where teachers can quickly find resources. What other ways do you use this idea of Explore with your teachers? So you can see there's one already on there from Candace that she uses Wakelet, and you can get a link to her Wakelet right there. So if you have any of these make and take ideas for the individual sections, I encourage you to collaborate in this space as well. It really helps kind of break down the sections and just pick one section to focus on, even if you feel like you're not ready for the full-blown class visits. All right, so especially since we had to move to an asynchronous format, feel free to reach out to me at any time. You can connect with me on Twitter. There's my email. I'm happy to help you make one of these class visits, or I'm going to share my booking page in the email that I'm sending to you guys as well. Book some time with me. Book a 20-minute session with me, and we can talk over Google Meet about this idea and how you think you might want to use it. I'm here and I'm happy to help. Thank you guys so much for hanging in there in an asynchronous format. I'm so sorry that I had to move to asynchronous, but we're educators. We make do. But don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for coming to class visits.